All right, Totem Pro Nation, you know what time it is. It's Lambos, World of Sports. Whatever I say, I told y'all on Saturday, Sunday, whenever I made the video that the GOAT of sports, the sports guru, is going to be my right hand man for a very, very long time. MattPatt is on the show for tonight. We got a lot of things we got to talk about. I mean, we're going to talk about the Bishop Sycamore documentary. I think it's a very insane. We got rants on that. He was right about Notre Dame beating the crap out of Navy. I get a random text message at like 10 in the morning, 10 at night, and I'm just asleep. I don't know what I'm doing. He's like, I told you they'll beat him by 39. And I guess I try to come up with every excuse possible, which that never works in his favor. And then Jackson State. How is Jackson State feeling? They beat South Carolina State 37-7. New quarterback, new system. I mean, we'll see how that goes along the lines. And then I'm gonna preview a lot of three top games in college football because last week we already did most of them. So I'm not gonna re-rant on that again. Colorado, TCU, Virginia, Tennessee, East Carolina, Michigan. I'm not doing Alabama and Texas because they played like in Georgia. They played UT Martin, Rice, and I don't want to recap on it. That's a 60-point blowout right there. And then the final four teams in the college football playoff who wins the 2023 national championship just because college game day, I think some of those guys, Desmond Howard, they were just out of their minds. I think they went on crack before the show, and it just the teams didn't make any sense. But I think our list is going to be basic. And then the last one I'm going to really talk about, it's not off topic. It's something about the Dallas Cowboys. You watch a little bit of Undisputed. I think that four trio of Richard Sherman, Keyshawn Johnson, Michael Irvin, and Skip, I think that's going to be the show. I wouldn't take show of the year, but that's a pretty good group. They stole from ESPN. They stole from Stevie A. All Stevie A
Dude, there's so much testosterone flowing around in that studio, bro. They're just trying to one up each other the whole time.
All Stephen A. Smith gonna get on Mondays and Tuesdays is Shannon Sharp. But I'm gonna get into this. So the Bishop Sycamore documentary. I think it really hurt my feelings. I watched it on I think Thursday, Friday, sometime over the weekend. Roy Johnson is a very sick individual. What do you think about the documentary? I think it hurts my soul, and I think it's very, very unfair that certain coaches will get suspended, or like Jim Harbaugh did, get suspended for violations of COVID for buying somebody a burger. But you see what this guy did, and when he interviewed, he had no remorse.
No remorse.
So how do you go on a rant about this one? I need to hear from your
He's
side.
honestly one of the worst people that I've ever like seen in a documentary, minus like legit like criminal people. You know, like I like put all that real world stuff aside. Like in the world of sports, this guy single-handedly ruined 50 plus kids' futures with like where they could go potentially go play ball. He was putting other kids at risk of injury on his team and the opposing teams he was playing. They had 21-year-olds on that team, which was like the big thing when the initial story came out. But then going to like watching the documentary, and they're like, you were aware that you had people over the age of like 20 and 21 on that team, right? And he was like, "Who, I did?" And they're like, "Yeah." And he goes like, "All right, yeah, I guess I did." And then we'll laugh about it. And then like he laughs about like manipulating the kids into coming to the school, and the only reason he had the school was for his own ego, and it's not even a school. So then he tries to attach himself to all these other schools to try to make his thing legit, and everyone's saying no, we're not affiliated, all this stuff, and he just shrugs it off and goes to another one and starts being a fraud at that new one. And I mean, at the end of it all, like, he's a terrible person, just bad person, great liar, I guess. I mean, it's like really good at lying and manipulating, which are obviously not great qualities to have. And the fact that he like enjoyed the documentary on how bad of a like human being he was just solidified it even more to me. Like, this guy is literally something you would scrub off the bottom of your shoe. Like, bad, just bad guy.
I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong about that at all. I guess from me watching it, as for me being a coach, I can't see myself doing that type of thing to players because once players play for your team, it all comes to a trust factor. I mean, they're basically your second. They're basically your second dad for the next 2-3 hours of practice, and you're supposed to treat them like family. You're supposed to make it feel like they're home. Like even with some of the coaches, we maybe take them to gatherings. You pick them up together. Like it's the same thing with Bird. Like before a game, probably tomorrow before we play Thomas Dale, you go out, you have a little, team dinner right before the game, like the little pregame, right before the day, team bonding, all this other stuff. But that's a really manipulative dude. The fact that he laughed about beating his girlfriend and he did it in front of the players, and the players literally said the same thing he said. He was like, well, this is why she deserves this. This is why she deserves that. And then after the documentary was over, after that, I think like December or something, he gets caught stealing from Best Buy. Now, how in the world you think you want to get away from Best Buy? Best Buy got security. They got people at the front door.
It's literally a tech store. You don't think they have cameras up, bro? Like
I
they
guess
sell the
not.
cameras. Like what are you talking about?
I guess not. And I guess that man still owes about $300,000 in loans and whatnot.
Legal
But
fees.
talk to us about what he did to the kids. And you already mentioned that, but what he did like financially, like he took out some serious goddamn loans and put it under their name and signed a fake contract talking about some pay $150 for a course that never existed. What is this? Is this the Stars show Ghost or with Tariq and Braden and they had the course connected, they sent them crack and cocaine? What is this?
Dude, I mean, it just like you said, like it hurts my soul and it really just like boggles my mind. I just the trust, like what you said a few minutes ago, like the trust of a coach, even like if you come from a great household, that coach is like your second dad, like you said. And then when it goes into the kids that they were recruiting to go to that school, he was taking advantage of kids from bad backgrounds, bad home lives. They don't have opportunities. So then he dangles these fake opportunities in front of their face. And it's like he's baiting them to Ponzi scheme he's got going on. And it doesn't make sense. Like he wasn't making money. Like you said, like he owes so much money. And he just like got so caught up in his own lie and ego and trying to rival IGM, like, or IMG, sorry. You don't think that they have like an insane amount of funding behind that school to get it to where it's like a pro locker room and pro facilities and everything like that? Like, yeah, that's how schools like that get to be that high. Bishop Gorman as well. Like, these are just schools with crazy rich people behind them that fund to where they can afford all of this. So in principle, it's like, yeah, like it's a really good idea to try and get underprivileged kids into the same type of thing. But he knew that it wasn't following that same blueprint, but he was presenting it to these kids as if it was the same blueprint. So then it puts them and their families at risk of, like, first off, hurting themselves. That should be priority one, is the safety of your players. And he obviously had none of that, telling a dude, you'll be fine. And he had 2 torn ACLs like we were talking about earlier. And the parents that trusted him to take care of their kids, and their kids are hungry, eating expired food, crap food. They were resorting to stealing from stores because they didn't have another way to nourish themselves before football games and football practice. Like, it just makes no sense. He owed so much money to the hotels. He's got over 30 lawsuits against him right now. And he laughed about that too. He's like, what do you think I'm going to do? It's like, bro, you be a good person. That's what I think you're going to do. Like, oh my God. I don't even want to give this guy more time in my brain. Like, it's just bad.
No, I do agree with you, but I want to talk about this quarterback. This quarterback apparently, he was hurt I think he's a pretty good person, but the team mom was a part of the team and was so-called the athletic trainer. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Don't you have to get certified? Don't you have to take a class to be, an athletic trainer at like a high school? What you got to take a course. You can I can't just go to Bird or Matoko when I say, hey, can I be an athletic trainer? Like I gotta have some type of certification or whatnot in order to get athletic trainer. You trusting kids with serious injuries, ACLs, anything, broken bones. Um, it was sad because I guess the quarterback had an offer from HBCU school from Grambling State, which Hugh Jackson was a former offensive coordinator for the Bengals and head coach for the Raiders, for the Browns. I think he's doing very well at Grambling State. I thought he had an offer, and then until the documentary came out, it got taken away. And I felt bad for the kid. I'm like, I want his fault. What you want him to do? You want him to run away and be bad and whatnot? I mean, he's stuck it in, but as far as for Mr. Sycamore, I mean, they some players came out. I don't really want to say their names. I know their names. I don't want to say their names because I think they felt, I'm glad the story that came out, but at the same time, they was probably humiliated. They had to say that on camera. They had to say that stuff on camera, and they cried. It was like he really
For
did
millions
this. Like
to see.
I'm going to believe the players over the coach. Like,
Yeah.
and then they go back and they look at the tablet, and it was like, no, he's lying. He's a liar. I mean, come on, like they were there. Like you have.
He said, do I get to describe myself as a coach first, or did y'all already talk to the players? Like he knew the players were gonna not talk very highly of him. He knew it before when they asked the question, and then he goes on to say that they're lying and stuff. Like he was preparing to defend what he was calling lies before they had even talked to the players. Like he knew the results were going to be bad. He knew that.
It's 30. It's like what, 3 of you coaches against 30, like what, 20 players? It's called the numbers game. Of course. I mean, they were around. I mean, you took them in vans, the hotel part. Like, really, you left these kids evicted for 3 months. That man said, oh, well, take them to an apartment for 3 months, let them live there, evict them out, go to a hotel. We just sitting there like, don't this not go catch up with you in the future? Like, you can't do that now. I'm surprised he got away with that in 2018. We talking about before COVID. But
yeah,
I just feel bad. I feel bad for the kids. I feel like that needed to be talked about on today's show because, I love documentaries about football and stuff, but I think that was worse than, I wouldn't say worse. I guess the scheme back then that came out in like 2018 on my birthday, the scheme with the whole NIL, Christian Dawkins, Will Wade type stuff. I wouldn't say it's worse than that, but just because, you're helping the players get money. But this is probably far beyond worse than the Christian Dawkins, Joe. I mean, he got away with most of the charges in the Christian Dawkins. If you watch the scheme, it's probably still on HBO Max, but that's a good one to take to as well. But
Will Wade, former VCU basketball coach.
Yeah, former.
He got fired so quick. He was bad. He was really bad.
So Will Wade went from VCU to LSU, and now he coaches at McNeese State and suspended for 10 games for what he did last year.
Yeah,
like
not the best.
Like, come on, bro. But next one I'm gonna get into is the Jackson State. So Jackson State, no, Notre Dame. My bad. Jackson State will be next. My second favorite team in Notre Dame beats Navy by 39 points. They probably should have beat them by 42. Very good defense. Audric Estime ran for about 120 yards on the ground. Sam Hartman had 4 touchdown passes, 4 incompletions. I mean, that guy is a monster. Now, I know it's one game. I know he's good. I told MattPatt, I said, let's see what he do against Ohio State, USC, those very good offensive teams, but they have a very good defense. They're not better than Notre Dame defense. Obviously, Ohio State defense is better than USC defense, but I'm not going to underestimate them. They beat us last year. I want to beat them again. But from Notre Dame perspective, how you feel about Notre Dame? And is Notre Dame going to be a top 5 team with that schedule? Like you said, they played 3 ranked teams this year. But the schedule, is pretty little light. I mean, the only teams really got to worry about is maybe NC State, Ohio State, USC. I mean, Duke is not. I'm not sleeping on Duke either because Duke won 9 games last year that nobody knows about with a second-year head coach and Mike Elko. So, and we played Tennessee State this week. So, how do you feel about Notre Dame? Are they going to be a top 5 team at the end of the year? What do you think?
So first off, just to recap, the game, like you said, 120 scrimmage yards for the running back. The Navy defense last year was they had sixth best rush defense in the league. 88 yards a game is what they allowed. That's an insane stat. And like you said, like the Notre Dame running back only ran the ball 15 times and had 5.6 yards a carry. And then also, 2 catches for 26 yards. That if that doesn't tell you that the offensive line is cooking, that the talent in the backfield in Aldrich is cooking, and then you have Sam Hartman, who is doing nothing but enabling those guys to be better. Like you said, like same amount of touchdowns as incompletions. That's ridiculous. He didn't run the ball one time. And like we were talking about last time I was on, like the season before last, he had 11 touchdowns on the ground. So like that's a whole element of his game that he hasn't even shown in a Notre Dame uniform yet. I think like it's only up from here. Obviously up from a 39-point win is a big ask, but considering what the spread was, what the talent lopsidedness was, I think it's only up from here for Hartman and Audric at least. But you did say, like tough stretch with those 3 ranked teams. You got to win at least 2 of those if you want to be top 5. I think top 3 teams probably will come out without a loss, maybe top 2, but the 4th spot could be the 3rd spot. And definitely if you want to just be top 5, you can afford 1 loss. And as long as it's to one of those 3 teams, I think Notre Dame has a very good shot of finishing up there. The landmines that are scattered around their schedule, though, make me a little nervous. So you mentioned NC State. They've got a new quarterback from UVA who I'm not super high on. I don't think NC State's going to be as good as they were last year. They had a better defense last year than I think they're going to. They lost too many guys in the portal, I think, to be on that same level. But at the same time, this is a team that beat UNC, FSU, and Texas Tech last year, who were all very, like formidable teams. So I think you can't glance over them. Another team, like you said as well, Duke, 9 games last year. They beat decent teams last year, but it's a light ACC schedule. Like they weren't going out there and just whooping powerhouses. They did have 2, like their offense and defense were 32nd and 31st. So like it's not like they were bad. They were a top percentile of the country. The team didn't really change too much. They got older and more experienced, and that's better in college football by, like any metric. And I was listening to an ACC preview podcast the other day, and people in NFL circles are super high on Riley Leonard, who's their quarterback. So I don't think, like you said this, I don't think it's a team that you can just glance over at all. Louisville and Pitt are both teams that you should beat, but, like hopefully the Navy game is a good indicator. But last year there were a couple teams that you just let get too close and it ended up bad. So Louisville and Pitt, I think, could be in that class, and Stanford as well. And they're not great, but they beat y'all last year too. So like they can compete for that spot, but they don't have the easiest path, and they can't drop games to any of these landmines like they did last year with Stanford and Marshall.
No, you're not wrong. You're correct. That's what I'm scared about as far as Notre Dame. I said Notre Dame possibly, if they can win the games they're supposed to win, they'll be about 10-2, maybe 11-1 on a good note without injuries. But what I want to say about this, to people that don't watch Notre Dame football like that, we lost Tommy Rees, the offensive coordinator. He goes to Alabama. Alabama won't even release the roster. So as of yesterday or today, or yesterday, Nick Saban is not going to release who's going to start or who's not going to start. That's for the first time he did in 17 years. But that's not the point. The whole point is we got Gerald Parker. I guess he was like a former tight ends coach last year. He did a very, very, very excellent job. So Notre Dame offense had 444 total yards, 253 yards passing, 191 yards rushing, 27 first downs, 5 for 7 on third down, 1 for 1 on fourth down, no turnovers, and the time of possession was literally 26 minutes. So the control is great, but I want to see how good he does. Tennessee State, I'm not going to underestimate them. It should be, win by 35. But the zero turnovers is the key part. Notre Dame will be a very good, unstoppable team with zero turnovers. And what Marcus Freeman said after the game against Navy, I peeped it just a little bit. I'm not a big fan of the post-game show. They talk too much and yada. I don't really care. I just want to watch the game and maybe want to watch, some film where they can get better at. But he said he likes the way that Sam Hartman commands the offense, made the adjustments, make the change, because Marcus Freeman is a defensive coach. So you don't have to worry about defensive coach going on the offensive side, and when they call a timeout and he calls a timeout, I'm watching him, Marcus Freeman's over there. The whole offense is right there. That's called trusting your assistants. As a head coach, trusting your assistants, like I said, Marcus Freeman is a former linebacker for Ohio State. He was a defensive coordinator for Notre Dame last year under Brian Kelly. Luckily, he stayed because he had an opportunity to go to LSU, be a defensive coordinator. And Brian Kelly said, hey, I'm going to make you the highest paid defensive coordinator. No, they take that guy. I think he's done a very excellent job. But like I said, what can you do against Stanford, USC, Duke, NC State, Ohio State, and I forgot one team, Clemson. What can you do against Clemson? Now, we beat them last year. DJ Lulu gave struggle. That's a different story for later, but Clemson is not a team you want to sleep on. But I don't have high hopes yet. Like I said, it's week 0 of college football. Week 0, you play garbage teams. That's why I'm not previewing Texas versus Rice, Georgia versus UT Martin, or whoever, and then Alabama plays, I don't know, maybe the Citadel, whoever they play. I'm not previewing that.
Bishop Sycamore. That's who they're playing.
I guess. I mean, that's part of it. I might have been wrong, but I don't want to watch stuff like that. It's a 60-point game. I want to watch competitive games. And we already previewed South Carolina and North Carolina. I will be watching that as well. It'll be a very, very good matchup. But Notre Dame, we'll see how they go. Either 10-2 or they'll go 11-1. Worst case scenario, 9-3. That's fine. But high expectations for Notre Dame. Marcus Freeman's in his second year, so he needs to at least be competitive for the college football playoff. But the next thing I'm going to talk about is Jackson State. No Deion Sanders. He goes to Colorado. He's going to play against TCU on Saturday. We'll talk about that in a second. They beat them 37-7. TC Taylor is first-year head coach. I think they did a very excellent job. They're very aggressive. Their defense is good. Is Jackson State going to be the team to watch out for in the SWAC conference? By the way, I understand that P. Diddy donated $1 million and all that, all these donations sponsored. That's nice and all. But the question is TC, is he going to keep Jackson State the way they were when Deion was there for 3 years, or are they going to somewhat fall off?
So I think it's tough. It's kind of like a similar thing to what we were talking about last time with, like Jordan Love taking over for Aaron Rodgers, to where comparing a first-year anything to a guy that's held in such high regard is really just a recipe for disaster. So I think that they'll be good for a couple years. With like a lot of the roster is still there. They lost, let me look here. They lost 22 guys in the transfer portal, though. A lot of them were their high caliber guys, the 3 and 4 stars. They had, obviously, Travis Hunter was a 5-star. He left. Let me just go over Deion's recruiting stats at Jackson State. So his first full season and off season to recruit was 2021. I'm not holding 2020 against him. and I'll do the same for TC Taylor this recruiting class. But 2021, he had the 58th recruiting class in the country. 2020, they were at 234 in the country. So obviously massive jump there, and that's purely the Deion effect, in my opinion. Following year, a little step back to 77th, but they got Travis Hunter. They got Kevin Coleman, who's at Louisville now. He was a 4-star receiver. And then the 2022 transfer class was also the 54th best in the country as well. So they went from 234 recruiting class and like an unranked transfer portal because no one was coming to 77th recruiting class and 54th transfer class. And they gained like so much Power 5 talent to where they could fill in any gaps that they had in the roster that wasn't a guy that was getting recruited by Power 5 schools. Like, no disrespect, the guys that are going directly to conferences like the SWAC and stuff, and like that's their only offers. They're good football players, but they're not on the level of these Power 5 guys. And so him being able to fill those gaps through the transfer portal, I think made a really big difference for them. And so you go so far into this year, and they're 138th or 130th, sorry, in recruiting. Obviously, he's still got a whole season and off season to get players in, but most of these guys are going to want to be enrolled by spring ball. So it's not like he's got all the time in the world to, get the ball rolling. Like I said, I think they'll be competitive for the next couple of seasons, but unless TC can get his recruiting numbers up there like Deion, it's not going to be successful for long, I don't think. I mean, you look at the stats before Deion got there, they were a very middle of the pack team. They'd gone through a plethora of head coaches. Like the program itself, which in Deion's departure, he did say, how unorganized it is and everything like that. So if TC can get the culture set within the organ, not even just the players in the locker room, but like how the program treats him, and like makes him feel like he wants to be the head coach there, to where then he can reciprocate that positive energy into the transfer portal, into the recruiting trail. I think that's the only way that they can resemble any sort of similarity to Deion's tenure.
No, you're not wrong. You speak all nothing but facts. But I mean, we'll have to see how this goes because, to be honest, we're not gonna pay attention to Jackson State anymore. We're not paying attention. They're still on TV, but we're not gonna be paying attention because primetime Deion Sanders is in Colorado now.
Yeah,
without paying attention to
took 10 of his players with him.
Yes,
Like they lost 22 guys in the portal, and 10 of those 22 went to Colorado. And like I said last week, they got 5 guys from Florida State over in Colorado too.
Well, like I say, he took the Louis, he took the bag, he took him over to Colorado. But this is what we gonna talk about right here on Saturday at 12 o'clock. I will be watching this game very closely. Colorado versus TCU. You got first-year head coach in Deion Sanders. You have second or third-year head coach in Sonny Dykes, who took TCU to the national championship last year. I know everybody's sleeping on TCU. Oh, well, they got blown out and whatnot by Georgia, but they beat Michigan, and they had a lot of guys. Max Duggan was a very good, was a Heisman candidate. By the way, breaking news, he got cut by the Chargers earlier today, which is a sad story. I don't know what the Chargers are doing. But I mean, that's true. But I mean,
he'll get picked up. He'll be on a practice squad somewhere. I'm sure he'll end up as a QB 2 or 3 at some place. I'm
just suspecting stuff. But by the way, who do you have in this one? I mean, according to ESPN, they're saying that TCU has a 91% chance to beat Colorado.
Yeah,
Nobody's
20.5 point
Colorado
spread
to win at all. So who do you got in this one? I'm gonna take TCU on this one, and you can go with your pick. I'm taking TCU.
Yeah, I have TCU as well. So, like I just said, the line is 20.5.
20?
Yeah, they're not expecting anything big, and I don't blame them. Colorado had the worst defense in the country last year. They had the 127th best offense. So that's damn near worse as well. There's 131 schools. So they went 1-11 for a reason. Deion did flip 80% of that roster. They had 51 transfers, which put them best in the country transfer class wise, just based on volume. Like the next closest school, I think, had like 19, something like that. Like it's wild what like he's able to do as a leader of men. But they, and also 1-11 last year, they played a really tough schedule. They had 7 ranked opponents by the end of the season. That's insane. That is a just terrible schedule for one of the worst Power 5 schools in the country to get. Like that's a schedule that you want to see Georgia playing, so they're not playing freaking Bishop Sycamore over here and blowing them out by 70 points. Like you want them to play these schedules, not a 1-11 team. But and this year's schedule is also they've got 5 ranked opponents right now on it. So I'm not expecting too much from Deion. I think there's just too much turnover within the staff, all the players, just culture in general. Like I think they're but they're not going to go 1-11. They're not going to finish last in the Pac-12, I don't think. But they're going to be towards the bottom of it, and I don't see a way that they're within the spread on this. I mean, maybe they lose by like 17 and they cover, but I think that's kind of generous. I mean, TCU, 9th best offense last year. They had a bad defense, and they lost 8 players in the draft, most of which coming from the offensive side of the ball. They did, however, have a top 30 transfer class. They filled positions well. I don't think their fall off is big enough to justify picking Colorado, like maybe to even cover the spread, but definitely not to win the game.
No, you're right. But we don't know who's the TCU starting quarterback. I mean, just like Alabama, it's either between Josh Hoover or Chandler Morris or maybe Jacob Porter. We'll see how that goes. Yeah. I mean,
well, Chandler was the guy who started the year as a starter last year, right? Before Max took it from him.
I might not be sure about that. I might be.
Max wasn't the starter to start. I know that.
No, you're right. You're right about that. I just wasn't sure because I know the story that he got hurt at first or he didn't play. So I mean, yeah, I think he was part of it. Might not, but I mean, whoever gets to start, because I mean, it's not like the NFL nowadays where you're picking, oh, he's the starter. Some teams don't want to name a starter. Alabama don't want to name a starting quarterback.
Brent Pry said we're rolling 2 QBs almost every game.
Yeah, but I mean, we don't know who yet. Nick Saban, like I said, he's not releasing that roster. But yeah. But by the way, I mean, whoever starts, I think TCU will do great. I think TCU probably may win 9-10 games this year, depending on wide receivers and defense. For Colorado, ladies and gentlemen, I know I've said in the previous episodes of Colorado, the expectations of Colorado, I said that they were going to win maybe at least 9 games. I'll give them 9-3. I think the teams they will lose to is like US. Wait, yeah, go ahead. No, we're gonna talk about this. I want you. I see. I like your energy. I want you to do that. So I said, I think it was back in June and July when I made a video on Deion Sanders, the expectations of Colorado, because I'm going to look at the schedule, because I said Colorado will win 9-3. Now I said they will lose to certain teams. They might lose. They will lose to TCU. They will lose to Oregon, and they will lose to USC. Everything else, 4. They might lose to Utah.
Utah is not a joke either.
Well, no. I know, but Utah doesn't have Cam Rising yet because he tore his ACL in that Rose Bowl game. So I'm not saying they're a joke. I like Utah and that 13 personnel, but I said with this schedule, because they play TCU, Nebraska, Colorado State, Oregon, USC, Arizona State, Stanford, UCLA, Oregon State, Arizona, Washington State, and Utah. Out of that schedule, it should be at least 9-3 or 8-4. That's what I said for Colorado. Do you somewhat agree with that? And I said they're going to lose to 3 good ranked teams anyway. Colorado's not going to be bad, but I'm not putting Colorado in the top 2 team in the nation. That's not going to happen. But 9-3 for Deion Sanders, I mean, it's not disrespectful. I think it's pretty legit. Do you think it's legit, or I'm being too naive?
I wouldn't say naive. I think you're just being optimistic. I think that Utah, Oregon State, USC, Oregon, and TCU. So that's 5 right there. Or 4. No, 5. Yeah, I think they're losing all 5 of those.
Ooh,
I
wow.
don't see them. There's just maybe at the end of the season, so I'll give you Utah maybe a little bit, but they're not a joke at all. But maybe by the end of the year, they'll have more of a flow going. But like 51 new players just in the transfer portal, and then you've got the new recruits coming in as well. Like, I mean, nobody knows anybody, coaching staff included. Like, the relationships aren't there, and like maybe that's just too surface level, but I think when it comes down to it, if you don't know your teammates, you don't know your coaches like that, like it's going to take a month or two to at least be comfortable with these guys. And like, or I mean, 9-3 is very optimistic. I'm looking 7-5, 6-6.
What the what? What?
Dude, I
Deion
don't
Sanders gonna
see
go
them
six and
beating
six?
Utah. Yeah. They'll go to a bowl. They'll go to like
The ball, they're gonna go to the bowl game at 6 and
they're
6.
gonna go to like the Office Max Bowl or whatever the hell it
Oh
is. Like I
my
don't know,
god.
but like
Oh my
they're
god.
not they're I just Deion is a great coach. We know that. We've seen
Okay,
it.
I agree. I agree.
We've seen it, and I think give them 2 years, this team is gonna be maybe like going into the season in the preseason top 25. Like they can do that. But this year, I just don't see it, man.
We're gonna have.
I think 7-5 is like very
Oh,
generous. If
that's
you
too
go
much.
online, not saying that we should all follow what big media out there is saying, but if you go online and look at some of these report, like some people have this as still the worst team in Power 5. Like some people have them still finishing at the bottom of the Pac-12. I don't think they're going to be at the bottom of the Pac-12, but I mean, I was trying to do my research and I was reading a lot of stuff that was not super encouraging. And I was like, man, I'm not going to buy completely into that side of it, but at 6-6, 7-5, and I think 7-5 is being very nice to them.
I think 7-5 from your perspective is harsh as hell. That is harsh.
Yeah.
That means, the reason why I say it's harsh because that means Travis Hunter has to be hurt. The starting quarterback Shedeur Sanders has to be hurt. That means they have to have.
No, it doesn't. They just
Wait. It's not
it's just
that.
the complete team. The complete team. Like Shador's a dog. We know that. Travis Hunter was one of the best recruits in the country last. No, he was the best.
I was going to talk about the work of the offensive line. The offensive line needs a little bit of work. That's what I was going to talk about.
Yeah. Well, and that's another thing that plays in with the turnover aspect. Like they've just got so much turnover on the roster. Like so many new faces and stuff. Players that I'm sure have never played in whatever the OC's like scheme is. Like there's just new variables at every single position group because every single position group is basically brand new. So like immediate success, even though it is Deion, I think is very optimistic. And we will agree to disagree. We will agree to disagree on the final record.
You're not wrong. That's why I like you very much. You're not wrong. But I'm gonna go to the next one. Virginia versus Tennessee at 12 o'clock on ABC. I would not be watching that because UVA sucks. And as a Tech fan, you're not supposed to like UVA at all. I know somebody with inside access with UVA. They say UVA won't win more than 4 games. Tennessee, I like Tennessee heavy. Oh, by the way, I say Tennessee wins by 24. I'll say the score later on. But with the Virginia and Tennessee game, Tennessee will blow UVA out. You got Joe Milton back. Nobody has really heard of Joe Milton because at first he couldn't get a starting job with Michigan. At first, he transferred and whatnot, and then Hendon Hooker played the whole season or half the season, got hurt against South Carolina and whatnot, and they lost pretty badly. But then Joe Milton, he tore up Clemson. He tore Clemson up. I mean, the way Josh Heupel's offense He's in his third, fourth year. He's turned around Tennessee. Tennessee was pretty bad under the former head coach in Jeremy Pruitt, who got a lot of recruiting violations. And by the way, Tennessee ducked another violation by the NCAA. They were only fined $8 million. So they ducked a pretty bad one. But
they're going to make that at the concession stand in 2 weeks, bro. That's ridiculous. They're going to make $8 million at the damn concessions in 2 weeks.
You're not wrong.
It's a joke.
Yeah, no, but you're probably not wrong either. This is Tennessee. I mean, it's Tennessee. Like, everybody's going to blow their money. But I'm going to pick Tennessee to blow out UVA. UVA's lost everybody. They don't even have nobody. Tennessee is going to win, let's say, 45-17 or maybe 10. I'll give them 17 because I guess Tennessee may turn the ball over. Lucky one for a touchdown. I'm going to take Tennessee. What is your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I don't really think there's much to talk about in this game. I mean, the line is minus 28. So, like, I love looking at lines before games because a lot of times, like you bet enough, you lose enough, to where you can't entirely trust the lines. Mm-hmm. But looking at these lopsided ones is just comedy at this point. I mean, UVA, 3-win team last year, 126 best offense. So they were one spot better than Colorado offensively. We were talking about Colorado as the worst Power 5 team in the country. They had a top 50 defense. So, like, that's not the issue. But if you're only scoring 18 points a game, then it doesn't really matter how good your defense is if you're scoring 18 a game in today's college football. They lost 14 guys in the portal, including their starting QB. And, they didn't bring anybody in to replace it. They didn't have a really great recruiting class. So there's no, like, immediate running backs or wide receivers or anything that we're going to see to make a big difference, I don't think. And then you go over to the Tennessee side. They had the best offense in the country last year. Granted, they lost 2 receivers, 2 O-linemen, and their starting quarterback in Hendon Hooker. Top 40 defense. They brought back 3 of their top 4 receivers, though. So Jalen Hyatt obviously was gone, but they had another guy that I can't put my finger on his name right now. He only played 6 games. He got drafted. So they're out of their top 4 receivers, they got 3 of them back. They got Joe Milton, who can throw an orange 120 yards and can throw a football. He said 90, which is, I'm not going to tell him he's wrong, but 90 is a big number. They got high-level transfers to fill in the gaps that they lost. And, I think it really just is on Joe Milton being accurate and controlling that strength. So, that's really the big thing before Hendon came in. And I don't think it's going to really matter in this game to say, but, just in future reference, before Hendon came in, and then when he did come in, he beat out Joe Milton because of his lack of accuracy. He can throw the ball farther than anybody else in the country. He has more power than anybody else in the country. But even at Michigan, he was overthrowing dudes in practice all the time. He was overthrowing dudes at Tennessee before Hendon came there. That's just been the theme of him so far in his college career, is not being able to hone that crazy arm talent that he has into being a top-level quarterback. And I'm not going to be the one that says he doesn't do it this year. I think he's got every tool created to be able to do that. I mean, you look at Hendon, he probably wasn't going to win it, but he was in the running for Heisman until he got hurt. So, it's the same staff. The team is a lot of the same core, I don't see a reason why Joe can't put a great season up. And there's damn sure not a reason that they're not going to whoop UVA this week.
No, I do agree with you. How UVA is going to get that butt whoop. UVA won't win anything. That's not really too much to say, but I don't mean
it's not a deep dive at all.
It's not. I don't mean to throw you off about this at all, but it's another college game that's coming on Thursday. In 2 days actually. So Florida versus Utah. I did a recap on that one. I forgot to send it to you, but it's all right. I didn't know college football started on Thursday. I thought it was Saturday. So I won't be missing that game. So you got Florida versus Utah. We already talked about you. You said Utah is not a joke. 13 personnel. Kyle Whittingham, who's been a head coach for a very, very long time. But we got to talk about Florida here. Florida hired Billy Napier, and I guess I talked to a Tech fan. I used to work at Chick-fil-A. He said he wanted Billy Napier as the coach, and I'm like, you don't like Brent Pry, former defensive guy. And I gotta get into this because Florida, I feel like they fired Dan Mullen, and Dan Mullen was part of the Swamp Kings documentary. He was the OC under Urban Meyer. He's been there for a very long time. Then he became the head coach of Mississippi State. And then Florida was very good under Kyle Trask. They went to the SEC championship in 2020 that nobody knows about. They went to the SEC championship under a stacked Alabama team. They only lost by 7. That was a stacked Alabama team with Mac Jones. I mean, that was a stacked Alabama team. Najee Harris. I mean, but Florida just fell off. So Florida last year was 6-6. They beat Utah last year, by the way. They beat Utah. Nobody knows that Florida beat Utah last year. But this is a different game this year. Florida versus Utah, who do you got? I'm going to take Utah. Florida has a new starting quarterback in Graham Mertz. He was a transfer from Wisconsin. Utah does not have a starting quarterback in Cam Rising. He still has a torn ACL from the Rose Bowl game. So I'm going to take Utah. It's going to be a 10-point victory. I won't say it'll be a blowout. It'll be a 10-point victory because Florida still has somewhat of a defense, but I think Florida has key injuries on defensive end as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go with Utah here as well, but I'm not giving that confidently. I think, like my point earlier was by the end of the year, Utah is going to be back to being a really good team, but without that QB, like, I don't know who's there to back them up. We don't know, like, what this guy is going to look like coming into the first game. And like Florida, 6-6 is not what you want to see from what's supposed to be like a powerhouse school. But playing an SEC schedule, everyone knows it's not a light schedule. They had 2 cupcakes on there, and that was South Florida, which they only beat by 3, and Eastern Washington, which they beat 52-17. So like, and they smacked South Carolina last year, smacked them 38-6. So. Like it's a good, they've got a good core. I don't know if it's, better than 6-6, but I'm not gonna make some bold claim here that Florida's coming back or anything. I'm gonna go with Utah for now, and I mean honestly, I don't see a reason not to roll with Utah in most of the games on their schedule. Keyword most, but. I mean, until they prove otherwise.
No, I do agree with that.
Utah's a good school. They got a good team.
Yeah, no. Utah's always had a good team, but we don't see them much to the end of the season because Utah, they did win the Pac-12 championship. They did beat USC twice. They blew them out in the Pac-12, and then the second game they stopped USC's undefeated streak. I think USC last year at that point was 6-0. And I guess the game went into overtime. The score was like 43-41. It was a high-scoring game back then last year. But I mean, I love Utah, but I'm not sold on Florida. Like I'm not a Florida fan. I want Florida to be good, but I just don't think Billy Napier is the guy. I know that's harsh, but the college game is what have you done for me lately? And when the AD hired him, it's like, oh, we want to bring national championship back to Florida. Well, I think firing Dan Mullen was probably the wrong step because of the whole COVID year, the whole 2021, when they went through a bunch of 2 quarterbacks and whatnot after Kyle Trask got drafted and it didn't work out and whatnot. And Billy Napier, I don't think he's the guy. I mean, I don't see it. I think he's on the hot seat because, we can't expect Florida to be 6-6 again this year or – I think 7-5 is not good enough. I think Florida has to shock the world, but I don't really see that happening. Florida will not beat Alabama. They won't beat Georgia. They won't beat Tennessee. They won't even beat LSU. They're beating none of those teams at all. They'll be at the bottom of the SEC. They probably won't beat Texas A&M either. Screw them out. They won't beat them either. So I'm not so.
They lost to Vanderbilt last year too.
Yes. Oh my
God. Yeah.
Was that Vanderbilt's only win last year?
I don't know. You see, Vanderbilt still don't have a stadium.
Oh yes, I did see that. It wasn't.
That's wild. Who's in charge of that?
They said that
Who's in
stadium is
charge of
under
that?
reconstruction to the end, to like middle of the season. I said, so where you go? So where you gonna play all your home games at? You gonna play in somebody else's stadium? You gonna play all road games? What happened?
Yeah, I don't know. And it's not like they can, like Vanderbilt's in Nashville pretty much, but like it's not like you can go and play at the Titans Stadium. Like you can't go like I don't know. And whoever was in charge of that should be fired immediately. Like they messed up big time.
I will fire that person immediately too. But the last college game I'm gonna get into is East Carolina versus Michigan because it's on Peacock. Peacock this year is now streaming the Big Ten games because the Big Ten expansion and whatnot. Now they're going to expand to 18 teams because 2 more teams are added to the Big Ten as far as next year and whatnot. So we're going to have the biggest conference ever. So it's going to be Penn State and West Virginia at 7:30 after that. But before that, it's going to be East Carolina versus Michigan. Reason why I predict this, East Carolina, they're okay, but if y'all are from the 804, Jonathan Coleman, Jacob Coleman, they the brothers, all right, the brothers that played at East Carolina before they, the brothers. I respect the brothers, all right. At East Carolina,
the boys.
They were the boys, but East Carolina, how are they gonna do? I'm not sure. Michigan, I think everybody keeps saying Michigan is the team to win it. Not win it all, but they'll get in the top 4. I mean, last year they were undefeated until they lost to, TCU. They got all the stars back. Blake Corum, J.J. McCarthy, a very, very good defense, a very good line. I'm sold on Michigan because they beat Ohio State 2 years in a row. And I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this on Amazon. I'm going to say it with a bold face. They will beat Ohio State 3 years in a row. They will beat Ohio State 3 years in a row. They will go undefeated. They have a cupcake schedule. The only team I would watch Michigan play is probably Penn State and Ohio State. Every other schedule is the cupcake. It's literally the easiest schedule they have. Even if Jim Harbaugh gets suspended for 4 games, they play East Carolina. Like, okay, they'll beat them by 50. The final score for this game, for my opinion, 45-9. And Michigan is at home.
Whoa, you got the spread right on the nose, dude. It's a 36-point spread for this game.
I swear to God, I didn't look at the spread.
You got it right on the nose. That's crazy.
I didn't look at the spread. I didn't look at the spread at all.
I believe you. I'm with you, though. I don't think there's much to talk about here at all. I mean, 36th offense in the country for ECU last year. So, like, on the surface, you're like, wow, they performed pretty well. They play in the American Conference, right? So outside of your, 4 non-conference games that you're going to play, everybody else is, it's the American Conference. Like, it's not a high-quality level of football. They did last year play NC State and Navy close. They played both of those games very close, and they beat Coastal Carolina in their bowl game. Now, Coastal Carolina, in my opinion, was just like a flash in the pan a couple years ago. I don't think they're really a long-term, you got to worry about this team type deal. They've got a brand new quarterback. The defense was terrible. 36 points here seems pretty on par to me as well. Michigan, what do you want to say? They 6th best offense, 7th best defense. They had 9 players drafted, and you could argue that the team is just as good as it was last year, if not better. Like, they're so deep at every position, it's ridiculous. And just to give a little shout out to my Cowboys here, our first 2 picks in the draft, Mozzie Smith, D tackle, beast. Luke Schoonmaker, tight end. He's going to be our tight end 2 behind Ferguson. We got 2 solid players from Michigan, and they also had a very impressive transfer class to improve the depth that they already had. 36-point spread. I'm taking Michigan to cover the spread. I don't know the exact score because I think this thing could be, a bloodbath.
No, you're not wrong. I think Michigan has something to prove. They have a story that is unfinished. It's unfinished business. They got a lot of seniors coming back. I peeped a little, YouTube episode that they have. They're trying to come back. They're getting better than ever. I'm glad that all their guys came back. They wanted to win a national championship. They were that close last year. They were that close year before. Back-to-back years, Michigan has won 12-plus games. The year before, they got smacked by Georgia. It was like 34-3. Then last year, they were 6 points away from beating TCU. They had TCU beating that game. TCU came back. They had TCU beat. They had them beat. And then, they fall. I think J.J. McCarthy is one of the top 5 quarterbacks in college football. He's definitely one of the top 3 top quarterbacks in the Big Ten Conference. I mean, I like that guy. I think he was a very sleeper. Nobody was sold on him at first because Michigan ran the ball a lot, but they started throwing a little bit more. But the thing about Michigan is they're going to beat you at the line of scrimmage. That's why they beat Ohio State 2 years in a row. Jim Harbaugh's job was on the line if he couldn't beat Ohio State. They beat him 2 years in a row. Yeah. And the first game wasn't a blowout, but last year was a blowout. You know why? They won the line of scrimmage. They won the line of scrimmage, and Ohio State's run defense was really this defense was actually suspect the whole entire year. They got away with it because they played a soft schedule. Except when Ohio State played Maryland. Ohio State almost lost to Maryland last year.
Ohio State did almost beat Georgia. If they just had to make a kick. They'd make one
You're not
kick.
wrong. You're not wrong, but you're not wrong at all. But Ryan Day could have ran the football. Why did he throw the ball? He threw the ball in incomplete pass. That's what led to the long field goal. College kids can't kick the ball. That man won't kick the 51-yard field goal. I knew it was going to be a miss. I just knew it. But they had him beat by 14 anyway. All Ohio State fans keep saying, oh, Marvin Harrison Jr. got hurt. Weren't they up 38-24 with less than 8 minutes left in the game? 38-24? And you can't close it out?
Yeah, we almost had a very different national championship last year, which I kind of wish we did. But that's another point.
You're not wrong. But the final thing, not the final thing, second to the final thing, is who's going to be in the top 4. Who's going to be the top 4 teams, and who's going to win the national championship in 2023. I'm going to go Alabama, Michigan, Ohio State, and if something happens, Notre Dame.
You don't have Georgia in there?
Well, hold on. Let me make this. Hold on. I'm so sorry. Hold on. I think it's something else. Okay, Georgia, number 1. Alabama, number 2. Michigan, okay. I gotta do the re-4 of last year. I gotta do not last year, year before. Alabama, Michigan, Georgia, Ohio State. I mean, okay. I want Notre Dame to be up there, but I'm not being realistic right now. That's a fantasy thing. I think Notre Dame will be in the top 5, top 6. Maybe they can win their games, but Ohio State has a new starting quarterback in Kyle McCord. Ohio State versus, Kyle McCoy versus Sam Hartman. That's a matchup that's going on September 23rd. But Ryan Day has won 45 games in the last – he's won 45 and 6 since he took over for Urban Meyer. Everybody talking about his job was on the line. That's not going to happen. Yeah. Michigan is coming back. Jim Harbaugh has won 24, 25 games the last 2 years. They literally went undefeated. They lost with 2 games the last 2 years. 2 or 3. Doesn't matter. Alabama. Nick Saban is the greatest college coach of all time. I said it in my episode. Nick Saban has 27 losses in his college career. He has 44 guys drafted in NFL. I mean, what else you want me to say? Yeah. By the way, they didn't name a starting quarterback at all. They didn't name a starting quarterback. Whoever the starting quarterback is, whether they play 2 quarterbacks or whatnot, Alabama's loaded this year. Alabama will be back. Everybody keeps putting them on, oh, Alabama will be there. Alabama will be undefeated. They will beat LSU. What else I'm missing? Michigan? Or what does I say in my top 5? I said Alabama, Ohio State.
Michigan.
I think I said it.
Yeah.
Georgia. Oh, yeah, Georgia. Yeah.
I've got the same exact list, dude. And it sounds so basic to make your prediction or whatever at the beginning of the season being basically the best 4 teams in the country, but that's just what it is. Georgia has as soft as an SEC schedule as you can have.
Yes.
Like, I'm not going to say that their schedule is soft because it is still an SEC schedule and you have to respect that. But given the caliber of their team and then given their non-conference games, it, like I was saying earlier, Colorado's schedule from last year, that's the schedule you want Georgia to play. You want to see them play the best teams in the country. And just at the end of the day, they're not. So I don't see any reason that this Georgia team shouldn't be back in the Final Four or college football playoff. Michigan, we're on the same page there. We already covered them. Ohio State, I agree with everything you said. It's a factory, dude. And Alabama's the same way. These are factories of NFL players. All of them. All four of these schools are just churning out NFL talent. And like when you put teams that, they've got really good players, but they don't have 6 first-round picks, like they don't have the entirety of the Philadelphia Eagles defense coming out of their school, like those are the schools, especially in this era right now, that you're going to see in the college football playoff until they expand it to more teams, to where like hopefully we can get some upsets. But in a 4-team playoff, it's going to be the best 4 teams on paper because they're going to show it on the field. It's different from the NFL when you have a top 3 roster and then they could just fall apart. College is different. Like this is literally separating boys from men, and those 4 teams have the most men. So I'm with you every step of the way there.
No. You're not wrong, and you're not wrong at all. The last thing we're gonna talk about is the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys, they traded for Trey Lance for a 4th-round draft pick. I needed an opinion on this because there's a lot that could happen. Now, the reason why I wanted to talk about this last is not because you're a Cowboys fan, but when I peeped what Jerry Jones said, we didn't let Dak Prescott know we were signing the quarterback. I think that raises some eyebrows here. And the reason why I say that is because of Dak Prescott body language. Well, it is what it is. No, he didn't tell me. He tried to act like it was cool. I think in his eyes, I think he was kind of, maybe pissed about it, just a little bit. I don't want to overreact. I think he was pissed, but he was like, went on. Jerry Jones didn't let the man know they were signing Trey Lance. Oh, we just let it happen. They didn't let him know. Now, from my perspective, from my recent episode that I made about Trey Lance, okay, he's he got 2 years up on his contract, a little cheap deal. Dak Prescott is going to be owed $60 million in dead cap money. And Jerry Jones almost couldn't afford to pay Zach Martin. He just paid Trayvon Diggs.
Whoa.
Well, I'm gonna let you respond.
You go. You finish. I'll hop
I'm
on.
I'm gonna let you respond to that. But a lot of money. All right. Cooper Rush was your guy, all right? Cooper Rush won 4 or 5 games for you last year. Okay, Cooper Rush. I mean, Rush Hour 4, you know what I'm saying? That's going to come out next year, but it's the bootleg version. And it ain't the old Rush Hours that's going. They're trying to remake the ones, which I don't like it. My point is, you signed Trey Lance, cheap contract. Okay, he didn't work out with the 49ers. He played, 6 games? Then he just broke his ring finger, broke his ankle against the Falcons. Doesn't really have a lot of film when he beat the Chicago Bears, or they lost to the Bears and whatnot. I'm not really sure when he started. He was inconsistent. He fumbled the ball and whatnot. Not to be a hater, but there's something going on. If you think is Dak Prescott going to be the future of the Dallas Cowboys? Now, I say yes because if Dak Prescott somewhat happens, the Dallas Cowboys get worse at quarterback. I mean, there's no other better quarterback than Dak Prescott, all right? But he's inconsistent now. You don't trade a pick and then sign Trey Lance. I'm thinking, is Jerry Jones losing his patience a little bit? What's going on with the Dallas Cowboys? I think they get worse at quarterback if you get away Dak Prescott, but I think it has something to do with Dak Prescott.
So I saw this as making your team better in an inexpensive way. When you look at who we got this year in the offseason, we got Brandon Cooks for a 4th, and we got Stephon Gilmore for a 5th. That's unbelievable to get 2 players of that caliber for that. And then you go back 2 years, and we gave away Amari Cooper for like a printer and a 5th-round pick. Like, we literally, I don't understand how some of these values in the trades work, but somehow a top 3 pick within 2 years has fallen to a value of a 4th-round pick. Now, it is tough because we signed Cooper Rush to a 2-year deal to be the backup. But, wait, hold on. I completely forgot you said we almost couldn't afford to pay Zach Martin. That is completely not true. We have $20 million in cap space. We have like the top 10. I don't know if it's 6. We have a top 10 cap space in the NFL right now. We could have paid Zach Martin. We just didn't. We have like $20 million. So oh man, it confuses me so much that Jerry is allowing it to be such a narrative, because I really don't think it is. He said in that same quote where he said, no, we didn't tell Dak. He said, we never tell players that we're going to get other players like that, which in my opinion, I should do looking into my window right now. In my opinion, I don't think that an owner should allow the narrative to get this out of hand. He's one of the most powerful men in America, not even just in the NFL, in America. Like, you can control, as corrupt as that sounds, you can control what certain media outlets say. You can. And he allows it to get all crazy like this. And maybe he thinks it's like putting a fire underneath Dak Prescott's ass or whatever. But I disagree. I think it's a terrible way to show your quarterback, who just 2 weeks ago you were talking about extending. Like, we were just talking about a possible extension, but they needed to get Zach's done first. And they need to get that extension done with Dak so they can afford to pay Micah. Like, if you don't think Micah's going to sit out until he gets until he gets damn near Aaron Donald money, like, I wouldn't put it past any of the top 3 players on defense in the league to hold out before a season starts to get that top contract. That's what Joey Bosa is doing right now. He still doesn't have a contract. So I think in getting Trey, sorry, I just went off topic for a little bit, but getting Trey onto the team is improving your team, giving you a security blanket behind Cooper Rush. I don't think it's a security blanket behind Dak. Cooper Rush, I think, has played enough to warrant another team taking him in as a QB2, whether it be this year, during the year, sometime, like maybe someone goes down on another team and a backup goes in. This team needs another backup. Boom, quick 6-rounder to Dallas for Cooper Rush or whatever. Like, that could very well happen, and you still have Trey Lance. You could also try to develop Trey Lance to where Dak, who's going to be 31 this year, I don't know how long he's going to last. He's had 2 major injuries in 4 years. He could be gone. I don't want him to be gone, but he could be gone in the next few years, and you could slide, hopefully, in an improved Trey Lance into that spot. But, I mean, I can't say that I wasn't taken just for a spin in my head. I had no clue until I sat down and, like, actually thought about it as to why the hell we would make a deal like this. The 4th round isn't – you're not getting anybody crazy in the 4th round. Granted, we got Dak in the 4th round. But in most instances, you're not getting someone wild in the 4th. So getting someone who last year, if you wanted to trade for him, they would have asked for 2 firsts, and now it's a 4th. Yeah, I think it's just Jerry being that capitalist at heart, needing to get his value up at every position. I think it's Jerry being Jerry. Everything about this is Jerry being Jerry, and I really don't like it that much, but I can spin it in somewhat of a positive way.
Well, those Dallas Cowboys, they do play New York Giants on Sunday. Like I said, today's the 29th. We are literally about 9 days away from kickoff when we talk about the Lions and those Chiefs, baby. The Lions and the Super Bowl defending champions and the Chiefs. But for a Tuesday night, that is going to be it for Lambo's World of Sports. People got work tomorrow and somebody has class. I ain't going to keep them up late. But it was a good show. So, Lambo's World of Sports is presented by Silent Sports Network. By the way, on all my social medias, it's going to say Lambo's World of Sports featuring MattPatt on every social media in the entire universe. Like I said, great episode. Good things will happen. Maybe my next episode's tomorrow, Thursday. I mean, I don't really care. Doesn't really matter. But we'll figure that out behind the scenes. But the goal for Totem Pole Nation is for me to change the game. So 99, 100% of the chance of the time, when MattPatt has the free time, I want him on every single episode with me. If I have to solo some, that's fine. Doesn't really matter. But I want 100% with them. It was a very good episode. We know where the Mr. Sycamore stuff, college football, whatnot. But more will come soon. Football hasn't started yet. We're going to hit week 1 of college football. And then once we hit the NFL, there's going to be more things to talk about. I might talk about some NBA stuff. But Totem Pole Nation, Lambo's World of Sports. We will catch you on the next episode. Thanks for tuning in.